Hello and welcome back to the Ask an Introvert podcast. I'm Jennifer Ho, your host and life coach for introverts. I help those who feel quieted in this world develop self leadership and take up space exactly as they are to live their dream life. So today I have to lead by example and I'm going to talk about dating. Normally, I don't share things I'm still going through, but I've recently found that is feeling a bit limiting. For me, because of the pace at which I'm currently growing, there has been so much that's happened in 2024 that I haven't even caught all of you up on. I also realized that I had set a rule really early on in this online journey not to share things that I didn't feel were processed enough yet, that felt too vulnerable, too raw. And that was because I didn't feel safe to do that. But now I have a new sense of inner safety. So, yeah, I'm going to use the podcast to document my return to dating, but also share some of my perspectives and thoughts and mindset work along the way. But so far, online dating is a mindfuck, and I have had to really, really, really hone in on my self leadership to manage my energy and focus on all the good things that are going on in my life as I go through this process. This episode is not scripted, so it's pretty half baked, and we're going to go through my experiences in the last 3 weeks. But before we get to that, I do want to cover a bit about my past. We're going to jump around a bit because I also have notes in my phone to reference. So let's just buckle in for this roller coaster. All right. So, background, I have been single, intentionally single for 5 years now. And before that, I spent 10 years in a committed relationship. It started in high school. And so, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I know that that relationship wasn't always right for me, but I had reasons to stay in it. And then in the very last year, I found myself feeling way more lonely being in the relationship with that person than being by myself. Looking back, like when you've been in a relationship for that long, for me at least, I was like, I was kind of waiting to see if like another season of the relationship would appear. And I also didn't want to waste all the time and energy that I'd already put in. And I was also afraid of being single. But through that final year, as I navigated these emotions, what I came to as a conclusion was that I was betraying myself. And that's the most painful part of all of it. Once I let go, I realized that what I was putting myself through was much more painful than being on my own. And I think, often we're afraid to trust ourselves. We all have that inner voice, that whisper that's trying to tell us something, but we ourselves quieten that voice. We ignore it for the judge in our head or the mother voice in your head, or I don't know, that random Catholic nun who taught you something that made you feel shame. There's these voices that are so loud, and when we let them overpower our real inner voice, we betray ourselves because we're afraid to make a mistake in the eyes of other people. We're afraid to make a mistake based on what they say and what their opinions are, and we risk letting other people's thoughts, ideas, rules become the truth that we live by. So I'm so, so glad that I've done all this work and I've also helped a lot of people with self leadership because self leadership requires trusting yourself above anyone else to follow your intuition, your instincts, your own joy. It's a process of choosing to create your own path, and you get to decide how far you go down that path, even if it means you have to do it alone, even if you might face judgment, even if you might face criticism. Self leadership is knowing that it's never too late to make a change in your life. It doesn't matter how long you've been at something or how far down that path you've gone. If the direction does not feel right for you anymore, you get to change. And that's what I did in that relationship. And recently, what I changed was my direction in being content with a single life. Like, I'm still happy as myself and not being in a relationship, but now the direction I want to go in is to find that love of my life. that serious, committed relationship that's supposed to feel easy. And so I've been working on letting go of protecting my time and energy to the extent that I block out all space for dating. So I am letting go, and I see letting go as an act of self care because to choose another path, even though I'm unsure, something about it feels appealing. Something about it is calling to me, and I'm going to let myself indulge in it to learn more, to figure out more about myself and what I'm capable of. So now I'm choosing to walk down the path of dating, and I'm going to share with you some personal standards that I've set for myself in order to maintain my boundaries and my self respect. I've decided that I'm not going to compromise myself for the sake of attention, connection, or a relationship. I will always be assessing if the texting, the phone calls, the dates, the potential future with someone actually brings me joy. I will be assessing if it honors who I am and if it's what I need for my soul. And so long as I keep that top of mind, I trust that my inner voice and my truth will be the most resonant in everything that I do. This is self leadership. If any of this has resonated with you so far, I'd love to invite you to explore cultivating self leadership for yourself. I'm accepting new clients into the Take Root into Self Leadership program. You can book your complimentary discovery call at the link in the show notes to learn more. All of that said, let's actually dig into the dating world now. So, I actually created my online dating profile back in late July and it sucked. I didn't, I couldn't get into it. And so I stopped. And between then and now, I tried to explore other options, like asking my friends to introduce me to people they knew, starting talks with matchmakers and seeing what that process is like. And none of that really feels right either. So I went back to the thing I have the most control over, which is being on the apps. If I were to frame this as a question, and then I'll answer it, I think you might ask me something like, how can I find meaningful connections in a superficial dating landscape online where it seems like I have endless choices and so do other people? Yeah, I think this is exactly where anyone really, but especially introverts, can mess up managing their energy. Online dating, when you're swiping, it does seem limitless. And maybe it is, but I think it's okay to set your own limits in how you interact with the app. So, one of the apps that I like is Coffee Meets Bagel because it only gives me 25 suggestions each day for me to go through. And since I like that, I apply it when I'm swiping on Hinge as well. So, if I only spend 10 minutes on each app swiping through, I've decided that that is more than enough. And then I'm going to use my discernment as I go through the profiles as well. Some of the things that I reframe for myself to make the approach better is I call it online screening instead of a dating app because the dating doesn't really happen until you're on the date, right? So I call it online screening. It feels like admin work, which I am a pro at, and that makes it a lot easier. One of the other things I noticed that felt iffy was when you're matched with someone. It sounds so serious, right? All the apps call it matches. I just call it starting conversations, which also gives me my own call to action. Like, I imagine having, if I have 5 matches in my inbox and we were all in a room together, networking in person, how would I actually present myself? One of the biggest pieces of dating advice for women is that you should not chase. But while I get that and while I love being in my soft feminine energy as well, I think in the screening process, it's not chasing, it's just initiating conversation. And for me, if I message someone first, it's going to be a nice, thoughtful question. And that sets the standard. If someone can't really have a conversation with me after that, then I remove them. Because imagine trying to strike up a conversation in person and they're complete done. You would move on to the next person. So Yeah, I think overall though, for me, it's been a rate of 1 in 5 matches where I actually maybe have a text exchange of over 10 texts. And then from there, I don't know how many like actually get to a video call vibe check, but it is definitely a long process because I go through more profiles. And even though I try to swipe right and like as many as I can, and then really discern it after I have the match, it's online screening for conversations. Turning it into admin work has helped me feel a lot lighter. It doesn't seem so hopeless and superficial. Um, so yeah, the first step is online screening just to start conversation. And then if there's a decent conversation, the second step is to get on a short video call and check their vibe. And then number three is to actually schedule the first date and go on it. So yeah, the apps are really just background admin work before the dating actually starts. So that's one way of protecting your energy. Now, if you were to ask me, how can I protect my energy even with this process? Or how do I navigate the parts that are out of my control in this world of dating? I would say that first, remember, you know how to protect your energy. You know how to manage it. And you just have to pay attention to yourself. I know you know when things start to feel draining. So it's up to you to realize where your threshold is and stop before it sucks all the energy out of you. I would say also consider your mindset. It's been really helpful for me to keep my mindset abundant and light and fun because the moment that it's not light and fun anymore, that's when it feels overwhelming. So, yes, have your high standards about how you want to feel in things, how you want to be treated, and what you're looking for. But especially through the online screening piece, keep your expectations super low. Because until you're actually at the point where you have to have a conversation with someone about starting a serious relationship, all of this is casual. None of this is serious. You can have serious intentions, but you don't have to invest yourself fully. That's how you can protect your energy. I would also say that if you find yourself obsessing over it, and let me tell you, the last 3 weeks, I definitely caught myself doing things that are kind of obsessive and not commonly me. Um, if you find yourself obsessing, you need to self regulate. So, like, I could not focus on work because I was like, "Ooh, what's a funny way to text this guy back? Huh, I have a first date. What should I wear?" And I have to catch myself in these moments. It's the obsessing over it that makes it feel overwhelming, that makes me feel anxious. And it is definitely an act of self leadership to be able to redirect my brain when it's not serving the goal that I have in front of me. And usually that goal is to get work done or to work on this podcast or to get back to a client. I cannot start compromising or sacrificing my life for something that's not serious yet. I think the other thing that helps me is giving myself permission to not be in it 100% all of the time. Like in the getting to know people phase in the early stages where it's very much casual, I don't need to show up more than I have to. And when I do show up, I'm going to be present. So if I'm not feeling great about myself, I'm not going to do any swiping. I'm not going to reply to messages because then I'm just sending out bad energy. And that's draining too. Part of managing your energy is recognizing in terms of your aura and your essence what kind of energy you're showing up in. And if my intention in the long run is to end up in a serious committed relationship, I have to be bringing that energy. I want to show up in a way that's aligned with that, but also open to getting to know people in order to get there. Because I don't think like this unicorn of a man is just going to appear if I'm just sitting around being mopey, being down, feeling like everything sucks. Like the person I want would not be looking for that. I also know I'm generally a pretty guarded person, so it's going to take me some time to open up to someone else. So, really, the best way to protect your energy is to make sure you're still living your life, that you don't set it aside and betray yourself because you have this new goal in the mix. I get that dating takes a time and energy investment, but you're fully capable of setting aside time and dedicating a specific amount of energy to each of the things you want to do in your life. Yeah. Oh, I remembered another thing. So, this is a note on the online screening process. It can get discouraging. Like for me, you guys know how I present myself online. I'm very intentional. I'm also a marketer and I have pretty good photos. So when I see other people's profiles, it gets really, really frustrating. So I've been giving myself permission to be really ruthless. In the online screening process, be ruthless. Because if I'm feeling like I'm compromising from the start, the whole thing is going to feel like a waste of time. For instance, like I'm allergic to dogs. So if someone has a picture with a dog, I'm going to assume that that is important to them. It might be their dog, it might not, but it doesn't matter to me because they're still a stranger. I'm allergic to dogs. So even if the dog is really cute, I know that this is not really something that I'm attracted to. Like for my lifestyle, I'm not going to have a dog. Do I love dogs like my fur nephew? Yes. But I don't have that on my profile because I know for the life that I want to share with my partner, a dog is not going to be part of it. So, some other things, like in the context of what I find attractive, I do a quick scroll. And if something just calls to me, it could be a picture, it could be something they wrote. If I just feel something positive in the moment, I'll just swipe right on them, like their profile. And here's why. Because if I were to nitpick every single profile, it would take freaking forever. So balance it out by being ruthless with your non negotiables and then just be chill about everything else. You can take a closer look if you happen to match with them. So, yeah. Okay. I know a key way to manage your energy is boundaries. I think when it comes to boundaries, the big question that could be asked in this context is what is a healthy way for me to set my boundaries without coming off as rude, disinterested, or standoffish? Well, it's kind of the same anywhere, right? Like, say your best friend starts to talk about something you guys have never talked about before, and that just feels uncomfortable to you. You can kindly set your boundaries still. So, an example in dating is if you already know something about yourself, like you're not a big texter, just tell them up front so they know what to expect. Or, like, if you're having a really good conversation, but it's time to go to bed, you can say, "Hey, I'm really enjoying talking to you. Can we pick this back up tomorrow? I'm someone who's serious about my sleep, so I'm gonna go to bed now." What else? I'm blanking on more examples, but I consider those some solid ones. Um, you're also allowed to change your mind. I think it took a long journey in figuring out that I don't really care to text people, especially if I already have a date set up with them. I value face to face time more, and I don't really want to spend my time in my day to day texting a ton. Um, I do find that exhausting, but also see the benefit where in the beginning, when you're just in the app, that a solid text exchange is needed. It lets me weed out people, but also shows someone that I'm invested in them. And then it lets us see if we're worth having a phone call with each other. So I think the lesson is, as it always is to pay attention to how you're feeling. Just because I texted someone a lot on the app doesn't mean that I want to keep doing that in the early stages, like dates 1 to 3 or something, you know? So if there are boundaries you can communicate ahead of time, do so. But if you're not sure yet, then keep paying attention to your feelings and set one when you need to. And then if you're not sure how to bring up a boundary later, you could gently bring it up by saying, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And then ask the other person how they feel about whatever boundary or expectation you want to set. Or you can tell them directly. The right people will appreciate it. If you encounter any mean peeps, then consider it a relief that you found out early and block them. Now, on energy management and boundaries, I think another question that I would be thinking about is how can I communicate my need for alone time and recharging without making a potential partner feel rejected? Hmm. So I haven't gotten to that stage where I've needed to do that, but have I worried about it? Yes. So I've considered instead, um, the things that are relevant to me now. I've considered like, oh, when I go on a first, second, third date, what kind of environments do I want to be in? Because if I'm in a really overstimulating place, it's going to keep me from being present with the person to get to know them. So I feel like this is one of the things that I can communicate early on. Like if they suggest somewhere that's too loud for me, I can start sharing about how that's tough on me. But backing up a bit, like back to the question, right, that I pose, if someone feels rejected, I think part of that is their responsibility. To mitigate that, though, you can present yourself as an introvert so that they just know. You can put that in your profile. In mine, I'm a part-time traveler, part-time potato. Um, and one of the early questions I like to ask people is, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? And then I can have these conversations and plant the seeds and preset the expectations without having to be robotic and like just provide a list of like, here's a bunch of things that I need, like alone time and recharging. I let them get to know me and learn this about me over time. So I think that's something that you can try too. Oh man, we've talked for over 25 minutes now. Um, I feel like I've yapped enough for this half-baked episode. I haven't gotten to the actual tea, like any tea that I can spill about my actual experiences in the last 3 weeks. Um, but in light of everything that we just talked about, I will wrap this up with one last tip, which is during the process of dating, you have to celebrate yourself. Yeah, you have to. Acknowledge and look for the evidence where you're trusting yourself. Because when trying something new, oh man, that is where the mind fuck is. When you're trying something new and it involves other people as an introvert, oh my goodness, you really, really, really have to see when you're trusting yourself so that you can get familiar with that, so that you can ground back into that. And then what you can do with that is build more trust in yourself. Celebrate when you're doing things that are right for you. And as I say that, I really wish that I've been saying that to myself for the last 3 weeks, 3 months. Um, there will definitely be a part 2 to this, but if there's anything about this topic or anything else you want to ask me and get my thoughts on through the podcast, send me a DM on Instagram or submit it anonymously at byjenniferho.com/askanintrovert. All links are in the show notes. Okay, that is it for today. I will be back soon. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode. I can't wait to talk to you again. Bye.